had never met my family for more than 3 weeks, and then all of a sudden I was crossing the sea to come to this country.
I live in Edinburgh, you studied in Edinburgh, and then the whole sort of, hydrogen world. You're working on the ammonia side, I'm working on hydrogen compression and storage and transportation. And really interesting to see, how our lives are in so many ways like so different, but at the same time, there's like all these connection points.
So I'm Geofrey and my second name means literally elephant. And I'm from Zambia, Southern Central Africa. We've got like 4% of the rural population connected to kind of reliable, sustainable electricity. And that's really low. It hampers productivity. It prevents people from tapping into the technology that we are enjoying today. And so that's one of my prime motivations is to conduct some sort of research that will, for example, find cost-effective raw materials for some of the technologies we have so that we can ultimately reduce the price to make it accessible. A lot of the energy that we use, for example, for cooking and other heating purposes comes from the cutting of trees, right? And people are doing that because it's just the only way they've got.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. And I think that's a great innovation challenge that, it can be basically brought to the next generation. It's like, look, there's all these things. And, what can you use from your local areas to really make it appropriate for the specific context? Because I think that's another part of the globalization. Just because it works in Europe, it may not work in parts of Africa or in parts of Asia. And so I feel it's ultimately always, coming back to the wisdom of the people that live in the land, where it's like, what actually works in your cultural context as well.
Essentially, my journey to move to this country, to the UK, I was in Zambia. I had never met my family for more than 3 weeks. And then all of a sudden, I was crossing the sea to come to this country. And I meet people from Asia, countries like Bhutan, Tibet, Nepal, and so on. And so the way we looked at the world was so different, and we had to adjust. And we were all united by one thing because we came to a new culture. And so as a result of that, I really have kind of a global outlook to life, and I try to look for something similar in people despite, kind of disregarding all the barricades that kind of separate us on the surface.
Yeah, so originally I grew up in Germany, and I feel sort of this whole idea of renewable energy was always something that I think was quite present in my life. I mean, I grew up on a farm, and so my dad and my grandpa, they're all quite connected to the land. So they're all coming from the domain of farming. And, just basically being in the woods a lot as a kid, I feel there's this real sense of, I am nature and nature is me. So basically we have a whole universe in our, 2-meter high body. And so I think for me, then it was in some way like supernatural to move into the renewable energy space, because it felt like a great way to innovate.
Interesting that you mentioned something like for you moving into renewable energy was more of a natural trajectory. Well, it wasn't for me, and I guess that there is an important point to emphasize there, which is around, I guess, outreach in some way, because there are parts of the world where this conversation is not necessarily being had. And I think that this tends to be a big problem where, something that's so obvious in one place is not so much so in another place.
Like your creativity can support us in making it better, or maybe, coming up with tweaks or like other ways of where do we get the raw materials from.
I think it's very important because for me, renewable energy or, climate change and so on became a reality once I stepped into spaces where the conversation was being had. So I think something like this, for example, where we sit and have a conversation that is accessible to hopefully as many people as possible, and initiatives like, Turbine Education, who have given us this platform, are really important, right? Because it allows the conversation to spread, to be made more personable.
And hopefully at one point, we'll sit together around the table and celebrate the launch of a big project.